This is Gareth Southgate, and this is the Three Lions podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Three Lions podcast. My name is Russell Osborne and this is an independent England football supporters podcast. How are you? Hope you're well. Hope you had a pleasant St George's Day. Whatever you may have done, however you may have celebrated it. I don't know. Maybe you went Morris dancing. Maybe you took in a bit of Punch and Judy. Maybe you had a full English fry-up. I don't know. Maybe you just wore your England shirt for the day. However you celebrated, I hope you enjoyed it. I also hope that you enjoyed the recent episode that I released, one where I spoke with Alex Hill, writer and performer of the London show Why I Stuck a Flare Up My Arse for England. That was a great show. By the way, I was very fortunate enough to go and see it in action. 70 minutes of Alex just performing alone, taking you on a journey through life as a football fan. So much more than just a sparkler up your rear. If you get the opportunity to see it, then I'd highly recommend it. That and plenty more can be found at your podcast provider of choice or threelionspodcast.com. Now the Euro finals are getting ever closer, and with every day that comes, little milestones need to be navigated for fans, for players and managers. I thought in this episode I'd take a quick look at some of those and what sort of they entail, really. Now, back on the 14th of March, Gareth Southgate announced his last squad before he picks his final Euro 2024 one. For those fringe players selected for the Brazil and Belgium games, this was a last chance to really impress. Make or break. Some would have made an impression. Some may have shot themselves in the foot. Coming up, as Germany looms and that final squad date looms, I'll give you my say on who I think should make the plane. And recently there was talk from many international managers about reinstating the 26-man squad. Now this was introduced for Euro 2020. It's also used at the Qatar World Cup. Now it came about following the knock-on from the COVID pandemic. It was to ease the problem should a player go down with illness within a camp. Basically, player welfare. But when it came to a match day, only 23 would be eligible for selection, with 5 being available as substitutes. Now, on the 23rd of April, it became clear that UEFA were to confirm it once again as they voted to amend it. Now, in 2021, Gareth Southgate, he selected 26 players. He used 21 throughout that tournament that got us to the final. Pickford, Walker, Stones, Mings, Trippier, Phillips, Rice, Sterling, Mount, Foden, Kane, Rashford, Bellingham, Calvert-Lewin, Reece James, Luke Shaw, Grealish, Maguire, Saka, Henderson and Sancho. And he would use 20 of the 26 in Qatar for our 5 games there. And I think to show how settled our squad has been for quite a period of time since that delayed Euro tournament and the Qatar finals, I'd say there is a possibility of 16 players going to Germany that were selected for the last Euros 2021. Now, a little while back, Gareth expressed a preference to selecting a 23-man squad, saying selecting 23 players is akin to art, or words to that effect. I'm sure he said something like that. I just can't find the evidence of it. I don't think I dreamt it. But since then, he appears to have had a change of heart, what with the amount of injuries that have been picked up. Personally, I think taking 26 players is becoming excessive. It almost feels like an NFL team now, doesn't it? But let's just take a look back, how it's changed over the years, squad sizes. The first 5 European tournaments, well, they were similar to what we know now as the Nations League finals to be, a semi-final and a final. But from 1980, a summer tournament began, and it had 8 teams back then. It's since grown to what we know it as today, a tournament with 24 nations. Back in those first 5 competitions, squad sizes ranged from 17 to 24. There was no set amount. It was only from 1980 that the amount of players within a squad was regimented. And for whatever reason, in 1980, it was set at 22. But for the following 3 tournaments, 84 in France, 88 in West Germany, and 92 in Sweden, it was actually reduced to 20. 1996, when it was held here, it reverted back to 22 and remained that for Euro 2000. In Portugal 2004, it was increased to 23, and this was the set figure up until France 2016. Now 2008, a year that many of us will conveniently forget. Well, this was the year that of the 23, 3 specifically had to be goalkeepers. And then we get to 2021, where, as I explained, the squad size was increased to 26. So with that in mind, let's take a look at the dates Gareth will have to deal with ahead of that squad announcement. Now, the 21st of May, 2 days after the Premier League has finished, Gareth has to name his provisional squad. Now, I'm not sure if this is made public. I have a funny feeling last time around it was just submitted to UEFA and we didn't know. But looking back to 2020, he actually announced a 33-man preliminary squad. So he may do something similar again. And you'd hope that once the Premier League has finished, it's a time for all the assumed players that we think will be part of it. They can now relax for a period of time. No, there are still games to be played that could affect squad players. So unfortunately, still the potential for injury and tiredness. The day after his submitted list of players is the Europa League final. It's being played in Dublin. Fortunately, there doesn't seem to be any players who Gareth would consider potentially playing in that final. As the semi-finals, they consist of Marseille against Atalanta and Roma against Bayer Leverkusen. I'm not sure Tammy Abraham and Chris Smalling, both of Roma, are at the forefront of Gareth's thinking anymore. The 25th of May is FA Cup final day. This year, like last year, is an all-Manchester affair. City against United. So there will definitely be England interest there. Stones, Grealish, Walker, Maguire, Rashford, Mainu, to name just a few. A few days later, 29th of May, is the Europa Conference League final. And with Aston Villa still involved at the moment, they're still in the semi-final stage, Ollie Watkins and Ezri Konsa, well, they've both recently featured for England. Could be in with a squad shout, couldn't they? Then the 1st of June is the Champions League final. It's being played at Wembley. There will definitely be an Englishman involved that day, injuries permitting. Although with Arsenal and Manchester City both being eliminated at the quarter-final stage, the amount of potential Englishmen was significantly reduced. So really, we're just looking at Harry Kane and Eric Dyer at Bayern and Jude Bellingham at Real Madrid. One of those clubs will be involved in the final. So, yeah, minimum one player will be involved in the final, in the Champions League final. Then the 3rd of June, we play a first of our 2 warm-up games. Bosnia up at Newcastle. Then on the 7th, Iceland at Wembley. Now the 7th is also the deadline for the final Euro squad to be submitted to UEFA. One wonders if we'll know before or after the game. Remains to be seen. As a week later, the tournament begins when Germany take on Scotland in Munich. And 2 days later, we begin our campaign against Serbia in Gelsenkirchen. So there's a lot to take in, and still a lot that can happen between now and then. So I thought I'd have a look at selecting my own squad for Germany. Obviously keeping my fingers crossed that these will all be injury-free, and it's almost a mix of who I think should go and who I think Gareth will select. And as it appears to be 26 men, let's go with 26. Let's take a look. So goalkeepers, 3 of them. Jordan Pickford was a shoo-in. Despite Everton having another poor season, not helped with the points deductions, he remains England's number 1. Interesting article I read recently that quoted Fabio Capello, who said that Jordan Pickford was a weak link for England. Also going, I suspect Aaron Ramsdale will go. There's always the debate about a second keeper. Has to be a good backup, doesn't he? Probably won't even get on the pitch during the tournament. As an Arsenal fan, I like Ramsdale. He's been unfortunate in a way this season with the way it's gone, what with Raya coming in. Maybe it's time for him to move on. I don't know. But I think he will push Pickford all the way. But I can't see anyone else that Gareth can sort of really look to for that number 2 position. Third goalkeeper, I'm going to go with James Trafford. He was drafted into the squad for the Belgium game as Sam Johnston withdrew. And I think in time we'll see Trafford as a regular number 1. So I see no issues with taking him to the tournament. And like Ramsdale, he probably won't play, probably won't participate in any of the games. But I think it will be good experience for Trafford to be part of the squad and see how a tournament works as part of the seniors. So defenders, I'm picking 8. And I have to say, this is the area that maybe I'm most concerned about. Solid back 4, but if an injury comes about, then I think we might be in trouble. But it is what it is. So let's roll through those. Harry Maguire, central defender. Despite what people say, he's a regular for England, and nothing changes that. He's had a fairly decent time for United of late. John Stones, again, another good season for Manchester City. If you're talking a spine of the team, then you've got to include John Stones. Joe Gomez, centre-back and can play either side. Good cover, if need be, for either Maguire or Stones. And as I say, can slot in at right or left back. Kyle Walker, right back. He'll be 34 come the Euros. It's likely to be his last England tournament, but he still seems to have the pace. He's still strong and he's still committed. Kyle Walker will be there. Kieran Trippier, just a couple of months younger than Walker, I think, but likewise, he can still do the job at the highest level at right back. And I think once these two are gone, Walker and Trippier, then we'll have quite the rebuild on that side to do. Now, left back, Ben Chilwell didn't have the best game against Brazil, and in the potential absence of Reece James and Luke Shaw, I think he can still be trusted, but he could be our Achilles heel. Another left back, Rico Lewis. Young, but experienced enough to step in should he be needed. He's already played for England. He's already played in the Champions League. I think he might get the shout. And my last defender, Ezri Konsa, centre-back, can play right-back. He was selected in the November squad, and he did play a part in both the Brazil and Belgium games. I think he may be the beneficiary of the squad being expanded from 23 to 26 players. Let's take a look at the midfield. I've selected 7, and just looking over this, I'm wondering if it's a little too attack heavy, a little too Kevin Keegan or Ozzy Ardiles. Jude Bellingham, I think we all know what he's capable of. Like Pickford and Stones, spine of the team. And should also say, congratulations to him as he won the 2024 Laureus World Breakthrough of the Year award. To be honest, it's an award that I've not heard of, to be honest, but yeah, deserves everything he gets, Jude Bellingham. Declan Rice, 50 caps at 25 years old for England, says it all. Jordan Henderson, this might be controversial, and like Walker and Trippier, this will probably be his last tournament. They all may retire from the international game come the end of the tournament. But you don't come this far without experience. And he may not necessarily be a starter. I doubt he will. But he's someone who is great to come on with 10, 15 minutes to go. Or dare I say it, extra time, to keep things calm. He's also an experienced head in the dressing room. He is someone Gareth can rely on. That is why I would select Jordan Henderson. Kobbie Mainoo. Initially, I wasn't convinced he could make the step up so soon, but I think he proved that against Brazil and Belgium. He's good enough at the highest level. Played in the Champions League for Manchester United in some tough places. He can also score too, can't he? Trent Alexander-Arnold. Now, I'm never 100% convinced with Trent for England. He missed the last Euros through injury. He went to Qatar, though. He's versatile. Right back, he can cover there, although Gareth has utilised him in midfield for England. I think he'll get the call, Trent. James Maddison, one of those players that I'm still not sure if he's done enough. Certainly a great player. I'm kind of 51-49 in favour of taking him, James Maddison. Conor Gallagher. Now, many may scoff, and perhaps rightly so, after his recent game against Brazil. And I think he's another who may have benefited from the squad expansion. And let's be honest, you don't become a bad player overnight. With 12 caps to his name already, Gareth knows what he's capable of. I think Conor Gallagher will go to the Euros. So that leaves us with a forward line. 8 of them. Is 8 forward players too many? Harry Kane, captain, England's record goalscorer. Only injury will stop him. Bukayo Saka. What a player. My only concern is the amount of games he has played for Arsenal. Not just this season, last season. He just seems to be an ever-present. Obviously, he had the World Cup as well. I hope he doesn't come the end of the season and he's burnt himself out. But he does seem to look after himself well. I probably shouldn't worry. Phil Foden. Phil Foden. What a player. On his day, unstoppable. For Manchester City, that is. I just want to see it now for England. Ivan Toney became the first Brentford player to score for England when he converted that penalty against Belgium. He won't be a starter, but I think he's done enough to make the plane. Cole Palmer. I think he has to be considered. After the season he's had, after the 4 goals against Everton, he's certainly one for the future. Anthony Gordon. I think we can select Anthony Gordon. Another player with another great season for Newcastle. Played well against Brazil. Was it enough? I think it is. I think it was. I think Gareth will take the chance on Anthony Gordon. Now, this is where it starts to get a bit tricky. Jack Grealish. Tough one. Not had the same sort of impactful season as we know he can have. He has had a period of injury. Wasn't available for Brazil and Belgium. I think he makes it ahead of Jared Bowen. I'll come to him in a minute. Ollie Watkins is the last of my squad. Initially, as a 23-man squad, I had Watkins missing out, but with 26 now being voted in, I think Ollie Watkins will make the cut. Which brings me on to the players who I think will miss out, and the one I just mentioned there, probably the most high profile, well, certainly one of them, Jared Bowen. I think he will be one of the ones to miss out, one of the unfortunate ones to miss out after having a couple of great games against Brazil and Belgium. But this is where I kind of think Gareth goes with who he knows. This is why maybe I think Jack Grealish will get in. And I also think maybe back to the 4 games that Jared Bowen played in that sort of behind closed door period against Hungary, Italy, Germany. Admittedly, the squad didn't play well at that time, but Jared Bowen was part of it. I shouldn't really bring that into my thinking, but I think Bowen will be one of the unfortunate ones to miss out. Jack Butland, he probably wasn't in with a shout anyway. Eric Dyer went to Bayern Munich. I have to admit, I've not seen huge amounts of him there, but he is playing. But he's not featured for England since Senegal in Qatar. Aged 30. He's more capable of stepping in with that experienced head, much like Jordan Henderson. He can take a penalty too. I think he may miss out. Mark Gay, might not. Fikayo Tomori, might not. Lewis Dunk, maybe played himself out after the Belgium game, unfortunately. One of the high-profile ones to maybe not make it, Marcus Rashford, just hasn't really excelled lately, has he? And I do wonder if a change of club will get him back on track. I don't think Marcus Rashford is going to the Euros. Raheem Sterling, well, this seems to be set in stone really now, doesn't it? He hasn't been selected for England since he came on as a sub against France in Qatar. Injuries haven't helped, but Southgate has gone on record before as saying he has a settled squad. And there's no issue between them. But Raheem Sterling's not going to the Euros. Calvin Phillips, well, after joining Manchester City, he didn't get regular starts, but was a regular for England. He then made a move to West Ham, and things, well, they haven't really been plain sailing, have they? I don't think he's going to make it. And do I even mention Mason Mount? Then you've got injuries that I think that will just mean that some players don't go. Sam Johnston in goal injured his elbow. I don't think he's going to go. Reece James, now, he's had an injury, I think it's to his hamstring. Sort of picked that up at the start of the season. Hasn't played. You're not going to take a risk on him, are we? Luke Shaw. We all know what he can do at left back, but he sustained a thigh injury back in February and was apparently out for 12 weeks. So he's kind of in that period of time where he's coming back. And like Reece James, are we going to take him with no sort of sustained Premier League games? I'm not sure. I think Luke Shaw may just miss out. I do wonder, though, if I've gone a little too attack-minded when I said that the defence was my main concern. Is that a squad that wins in Berlin? Let me know what you think. I think the general consensus was that against France in the World Cup, we were the better team. And taking a quick look at that, we could almost play that same team against Serbia in our opening game, with the only exception being Luke Shaw, who, as I just mentioned, is an injury doubt. That day in the Al Bayat Stadium in Alcor, we had a 4-3-3 starting lineup of Pickford, Walker, Stones, Maguire, Shaw, Henderson, Bellingham, Rice, Foden, Kane and Saka. Swap Chilwell for Shaw? Would you be happy with that for the opening game? And with a 26-man squad, if we come home with a trophy, that's 26 knighthoods for the king to deal out. Hopefully. Anyway, there you go. That's my 2 pennies worth. This is all before Gareth announces his squad. Just to remind you, that is on the 7th of June. Thanks for listening. I hope you've enjoyed it. Don't forget, you can follow the show on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. It's also on YouTube. You can also contribute to the hosting fees of the show, should you want to. Head to ko-fi.com/3 Lions Podcast, ko-fi.com/3 Lions Podcast. Any amount is much appreciated. Do you agree with my squad? Let me know. So until the next time, take care of yourselves. Cheers.